The film opens in the middle of a massive traffic jam where Emile and his father, Francois, argue because Emile did not want to go, causing them to arrive late. Frustrated by his father's constant scolding, Emile gets out of the car and Francois follows him. At that moment, they notice an ambulance shaking violently as something inside screams before the windows suddenly shatter. Francois immediately pulls Emile into hiding as the ambulance doors burst open and a half-bird, half-human creature emerges, landing on top of a car. Security officers rush to recapture the mutant, but it fights back and screams at them, terrifying everyone on the road. The creature manages to break free and escape. Sometime later, Emile and Francois arrive at the hospital to meet the doctor treating Lana, Emile's mother, who is also mutating into an animal. They learn that, over the past 2 years, many people across the country have suddenly begun transforming into more animal-like forms, often becoming violent. Authorities are trying to capture them and place them in specialized institutions, where the mutants are sedated and studied in hopes of finding a cure. Most of the public fears the mutants and wants them locked away. Emile refuses to see his mother, still unsettled after she accidentally scratched his face, but Francois insists that she is still family. The doctor explains that a new, more advanced care center has opened in the south and recommends transferring Lana there. Francois immediately agrees, determined to move there with Emile so they can start a new life away from the judgment of those who already knew about Lana. When they enter Lana's hospital room, Emile notices the deep scratches covering the walls and keeps his distance. Francois sits beside her and speaks gently, convinced that talking to her is helping, but Emile believes she can no longer understand anything they say. Weeks later, Emile, Francois, and their dog move into their new home near the forest. Emile soon starts attending school, and when the teacher introduces him to the class, a girl named Nina asks him too many questions. Wanting to avoid the truth, Emile lies and says his mother is dead, then claims his facial scar was caused by a lightning strike. That same night, a powerful storm hits the town. The power goes out, and Emile wakes up to the sound of wind and thunder. He looks out the window and is startled to see a creature staring at the house, but when Francois restores the electricity, the creature vanishes. The next day, they receive an emergency call and rush to the local lake, where police and firefighters have sealed off the area. The storm caused an ambulance to veer off the road and sink into the lake. When Emile and Francois see an officer recovering the body of a creature, Francois fears the worst. This was the ambulance transporting the mutants to the new care center, and now half of them are dead while the others have escaped. As Francois desperately shouts for his wife, officers restrain him, but a police officer named Julia assures him that Lana's body was not found, meaning she must still be somewhere in the forest. After returning home, Francois begins hanging pieces of Lana's clothing from the trees surrounding the house, hoping her scent will guide her back to them. The next day at school, during gym class, the teacher sends the students to play tug of war. As soon as the game starts, everyone on Emile's team is pulled to the ground, except him. To his own surprise, Emile manages to hold the rope alone just long enough for his teammates to recover and win the match. His classmates are amazed by his strength and invite him to a party, but Emile is far more concerned with his own body. He examines his fingers and runs home, where he uses tweezers to pull something from beneath his fingernails, screaming in pain. He is shocked to discover small claws, realizing that he too is beginning to mutate. Looking at his back in the mirror, he notices that the shape of his spine is also changing. Enraged, Emile throws objects around the bathroom before climbing into the bathtub, trying to wash away his shame, as his dog joins him to offer comfort. Meanwhile, Francois checks the mailbox and runs into Julia, who informs him that the search has been called off because the government has promised to send in the army. Suddenly, screams erupt as shoppers spot a mutant. Julia orders her colleagues to evacuate the shopping center, while Francois searches the area, hoping the creature might be Lana. Instead, it turns out to be a squid-like mutant, simply trying to eat fish. When it realizes it has been discovered, it throws a box of shrimp and fleas, continuing to hurl food at Julia as she chases it. This proves ineffective against a trained officer, and Julia tackles the mutant to capture it. While this unfolds, Francois looks beneath a grocery store counter and finds another mutant hiding there in terror, but he chooses not to alert the police. The following Friday, Emile attends the party and initially has a good time. His classmates admire the swords brought by a boy who is preparing a performance for the upcoming summer solstice festival. However, the alcohol soon affects Emile badly, and he collapses from his chair. Nina gives him some medication, but Emile instinctively licks her hand to take it, frightening everyone around him. Ashamed, Emile runs into the forest, hearing the sounds of other mutants moving nearby. The next morning, he wakes up near the lake after hearing a motorboat pass by. He finds blood in his mouth and spits it out before heading home, passing anti-mutant graffiti along the way. Once inside the house, he rushes to the bathroom and vomits a feather, realizing that he ate a bird the night before. Later, Francois and Emile ignore the police barricades and head into the forest to search for Lana. Emile asks his father how he felt when Lana first began to change, and Francois explains that he was never afraid, she was still his wife, just a little different. As night falls, they continue searching by car, shouting out the windows while playing Lana's favorite song at full volume. They end up spending the night in the car, and by morning, Emile notices that his fingernails are changing again. Suddenly, their dog runs off, and Emile follows, only to discover a chameleon-like boy hiding in a tree. At that moment, the Birdman from the beginning attacks Emile, knocking him to the ground and beating him with his wings, while his claws tear into Emile's shoulder, drawing blood. The creature freezes when it looks into Emile's eyes, and realizes that he too is a mutant. Hearing Emile's screams, Francois rushes over, grabs his son, and begs the Birdman to back away. Back in the car, Francois insists on going to the hospital, but Emile refuses, fearing the truth will be exposed. Their argument nearly causes a collision with a horse, but Francois breaks in time, revealing they have arrived at a riding school. With police already present, Julia explains that a mutant attacked the horses, giving Francois the chance to ask for a favor. A military nurse stitches Emile's shoulder and accepts the explanation that a dog bit him. Later at home, Emile removes some of the stitches and begins licking the still bleeding wound. Sometime later, during a science class, Emile notices that Nina is wearing a necklace with a feather identical to the one he vomited earlier, which immediately frightens him. Nina confronts him right away, but Emile is unable to focus afterward, distracted by the screeching ferrets inside their cage. Eventually, he loses his temper and shouts at them to be quiet. After class, Emile struggles to ride his bike due to the changes in his body, and Nina does her best to support him, even inviting him to spend time at her house. While preparing a snack, Emile opens the refrigerator and finds a dead bird. Nina explains that she found it on her doorstep after the party and took a feather for her necklace. Emile realizes that he did not eat the bird, but left it there as a gift. Nina keeps it because she plans to donate it as food for the mutants. Later, Emile enters the lake and catches a fish with his bare hands, an act witnessed by a neighbor. He then seeks out the Birdman, who repeatedly tries to fly but crashes to the ground each time. Emile leaves the fish for him and learns that the creature calls himself Fix, as he no longer remembers his real name. Seeing Fix's injuries from his failed attempts to fly, Emile suggests a safer place to practice and leads him to the lake. After removing branches from the water to prevent further harm, Fix agrees to train there. That night, Emile attempts to ride his bike home but keeps falling, so he leaves it in the forest and later tells his father it was stolen. Meanwhile, at the bar where Francois works, he discovers that the owner has produced anti-mutant shirts, deeply unsettling him. While taking out the trash, Francois hears noises in the back and is suddenly grabbed and thrown to the ground by a mutant. Realizing the creature is chained, Francois tries to calm it peacefully but notices a second mutant escaping. A coworker then strikes the chained mutant with a paddle, revealing that the creature is her relative and that she has been hiding him at work. Together, she and Francois attempt to guide the mutant back to its hiding place, but it panics and runs toward the front of the bar, causing everyone to flee in terror. Believing the other creature might be Lana, Francois runs into the forest and finds his wife fully transformed into a bear. She growls at him before disappearing back into the woods. Later, during lunch at school, Emile suddenly feels something in his mouth and spits out a tooth. His classmates react in disgust, so he quickly lies and claims it was just a baby tooth. That afternoon, he visits Fix, who repeatedly falls into the water while trying to learn how to fly. While Fix rests, Emile examines his injuries and removes the bandage from his face, discovering that doctors previously performed a brutal operation to remove the beak that had been growing. That night, Julia joins Francois in the forest to help search for Lana, and they are forced to hide whenever a police car passes. They fail to find any mutants, but Francois is shocked when he comes across Emile's bicycle. Back at home, Francois notices the bathroom sink is clogged and removes the pipe to drain it, finding large amounts of hair and several claws inside. This finally makes him realize that Emile is also changing. When Emile returns home, Francois confronts him with the claws and the bicycle, but Emile denies everything. Francois locks the house and refuses to let him inside until he admits the truth, prompting Emile to try to run away. A desperate Francois chases him down, tackles him to the ground, and clutches him tightly while breaking down emotionally. The next morning, Emile eats directly from his plate instead of using a fork, and Francois supports him. He also shares some of Lana's medication with Emile to help control his impulses at school. Francois checks Emile's mouth and confirms that his fangs are positioned toward the back for now. He reminds Emile to trim his nails daily, places cotton in his ears and covers them with his hair to dull his heightened hearing, and finally shows him how to apply depilatory cream to his body. Later that day, Emile talks with Nina on the phone while walking outside and asks her to scream. When she does, Emile is delighted to realize he can hear her from a great distance. The next day, Emile visits Fix and discovers that he can no longer speak, only able to produce bird-like sounds. After Emile hugs him, Fix climbs a tree and leaps from it, revealing that he can finally fly and takes great joy in doing so. Later, Emile goes to the festival where his father is working. Francois becomes furious upon seeing him, insisting that Emile should be hiding, and their argument quickly escalates into a physical confrontation. Emile growls and bites his father's shoulder, refusing to let go until Francois threatens him with a pair of scissors. Confused and upset, Emile walks away and runs into Nina, who invites him to take a walk through the cornfields. The two teenagers end up kissing, and the moment quickly becomes intimate, leading them to lie down together. When Emile removes his shirt, Nina notices his body hair and altered spine, but says she already knew and continues anyway. They later return to the festival, where Emile goes to the bathroom and is cornered by a classmate who saw him with Nina in the field. The boy activates a small device that emits a sound supposedly only animals can hear, which immediately causes Emile intense pain. Panicked, Emile attacks the boy, leaving scratch marks on his face, and then flees to hide in the fields as the boy alerts the townspeople. Locals arm themselves and call the police. A dog soon tracks Emile down, but he scares it away by barking. When the dog retreats, two men fire in that direction, triggering the alarm. Emile runs as fast as he can while being chased by a mob, and just as a man is about to shoot him, Fix intervenes and pushes the man, killing him with his claws. Fix then flies toward the forest so Emile can follow. A police car also gives chase, and Emile crosses the lake to stop them, but the men, frustrated, fire from the opposite shore and tragically hit Fix. Emile rushes to his friend's side and breaks down in tears as Fix dies in his arms. Minutes later, Francois and the hunters find Fix's body, but Emile is nowhere to be seen. Back in town, a massive mutant moves silently through the streets as military trucks head toward the forest. The next day, Emile remains hidden among the trees, surviving by eating whatever fruit he can find. At night, he climbs into a tree and joins the chorus of nocturnal creatures with his own howls. The following night, a storm forces Emile to take shelter inside a cave, where he is startled by the approach of a bear, only to realize it is his mother. They press their foreheads together in a quiet display of love before Lana turns and invites him to follow her. Emile does so and discovers a large group of mutants living together peacefully, including the chameleon girl. Suddenly, flares light up the sky, signaling that the army has found them. Emile and the other mutants try to flee and hide, but the soldiers deploy a deafening sound that incapacitates them, forcing them to the ground and allowing their capture. Only the chameleon girl escapes by blending into her surroundings. Later, at the police station, Francois helps Emile claim that he was drunk and wandered into the forest by mistake. However, when Emile attempts to sign the release papers, his hand cannot grip the pen and tears the document. Given another sheet, Emile growls uncontrollably at the officer, prompting Francois to shove the man before he can raise the alarm. The officer hits his head and loses consciousness, allowing Francois to sign the papers himself, show them to the receptionist, and leave with Emile. They get into the car and drive out of town, but the police soon give chase. Francois promises Emile that he will never be locked away in an institution and accelerates, crashing through a fence to reach the forest. He tells Emile to run, and Emile does so, howling with joy as he disappears into the trees.